Well, guys, yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a
It's been a
minute.
few minutes.
but hopefully we've got some kinks worked out. We've got some plans moving forward, even though Scrappy is wearing a Mets jersey, which did you get beat up at the Braves game?
Oh, I nearly did, and we were in the Xfinity Club too, so it really didn't help matters that I was the only Mets jersey in the Xfinity Club. That, especially after the game that we won, it was like, "Oy, this could get real bad real quick."
Hang on,
It was
the
looking rough.
Mets won. The Mets won.
Yeah, the first game of the series, yeah, we
Okay.
won 8-7, and we were. I'm convinced we were trying to lose the game though. Like we were trying to throw that game away.
Are the Mets any good? I don't watch baseball
No,
much. I don't know.
no, we should. No, I think we're like third in the division right now. Like I don't think we're horrible, but I'm not expecting anything out of this season. I'm expecting us to just rebuild. It's yeah, we're 7-8 right now. We're third in the division. I mean, the Braves are a far better ball club this year. We just we got hot in the middle of the game, and
Well, I mean, it's the good thing about baseball that I love about baseball is that there's a ton of games. So at the end of the day, the teams that end up at the top have proven themselves
yeah,
over a long period of time.
it was lucky because I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, "Yeah, we're probably gonna be leaving by the end of the fifth. Because if we're getting drummed, I'm not gonna sit here for the tomahawk chopping every inning." But all of a sudden, we were winning. I was like, "Okay, I kind of like this." And then we ended up winning the game. So I was like, "Oh, well, this worked out amazingly."
All right, this has not become a
Yeah.
baseball podcast, guys. I don't know where we went down that path. I didn't mean to go down that path. We are still focused on wrestling and in the Southeast. We're gonna talk about a couple things today. Let's start just as a really small minor event that is this coming weekend, the Olympic trials um in State College, PA. Um, you know, anything stand out to you? We're just gonna dip our toe
Yeah,
into
I mean,
this.
just
Okay, not just a little
for
bit.
brief overview. I mean, tons of storylines. Vito not being there is going to be huge. I think it opens up 57 kilograms, 74 kilograms. Once again, looks to be a absolute minefield. Speaking 74 kilograms, all thoughts and prayers to the Dake family. Uh,
Mhm.
Shame to hear about that. I heard about it on Twitter. I think I saw it this morning. Uh, but 74 kilograms, that bracket is ridiculous. It's going to be a lot of great wrestling this upcoming weekend. I'm excited for it, obviously, to watch it.
Yeah, so you hit on the things that I was thinking about as well. Is there one match that you want to see?
I always want to see Burroughs Dake. That's a match I always want to see. Just in my opinion, the two I can make the argument the two greatest Americans of this generation. I'm always going to want to see them
David
going at.
Taylor might take exception, but
I said arguably, but they both always have beat David Taylor, so I got to kind of give him the nod. Um, so that's where I'm at. That's always a match I want to see. That whole 57 kilogram bracket is nuts. I mean, from the quarters and on, it's looking like it's a minefield. Shout out Jax Forrest in that bracket.
yeah, no
That'll
doubt.
be interesting. That'll be interesting to see. Should be a lot of fun though this weekend. I'm excited.
All right, so let's move to some events over the last couple weeks. This past weekend was Women's Nationals. We'll get to that in a second. Let's jump back 2 weeks to NHSCA's, where the Southeast had, I think, 13 national champs. Three girls: Mariah Mills, Christina Borgman, both from Florida, and Elizabeth Rosenthal of Alabama. Freshmen had Lucas Bowe from Florida by way of Indiana, I think.
I would say
Um,
by way of not Florida. I don't know
Not
where, but
Florida, right?
not Florida.
Sophomore had Urchuk, Jojo Urchuk, Antonio Mills, Dallas Russell, and Ryder Smith from Tennessee. Juniors had Bradley Patterson from Georgia, Camden, CJ Torres from Florida, Alex Smith from Florida, and seniors, tip of the cap to Conlon Weaver, who won it for Camden as well, and Kendrick Hodge from Florida. Those were your 13 national champs. Let's start there. Was there one performance? Because we can't talk about all of them. Just give me one
Yeah,
performance.
one performance is going to be tough. If I got to pick one just right now, you know, Araya Mills looked fantastic. I don't want to be biased, but a kid like Tanner Hunt, who I've had a personal friendship relationship with due to his father, he looked like he finally came out of his shell a little bit this week. But it's tough to go against Dallas Russell, man. He, from round 1 to finals, was standing on business and wrestled. It's going to be crazy to say this out loud. It's the best I've ever seen Dallas Russell. And he's looked amazing at a lot of tournaments. It's the best I've ever seen him to this point. Like, everything about his game, he continues to add more stuff. He's adding more stuff off that baseball tie, which he really didn't have a lot of last season. Adding stuff that it just an incredible performance by Honey Badger.
So I will agree with you. I mean, if you miss the matches, go watch Dallas Russell's Zeno Moore semifinal match. Was a really good match to watch. The finals between Antonio Mills and Mason Jacob, who just continue to find each other. Man, we've got two of the best sophomore 120 pounders in the entire country sitting right here in the Southeast.
I would say, don't say the Southeast. They're two of the best in the entire country, and they keep banging heads with each other, and I love it. I want to see them wrestle 10 more times.
All right, so let's jump to the girls. Florida had 9 All-Americans. Alabama had 4. South Carolina had 4. Georgia had 3. North Carolina had 3. Tennessee had 3. Probably, if you were to give me just a couple of standout performances for the girls.
So this is where my Georgia bias is gonna show here a little bit. Gonna be honest. I will say I am super proud of Ella Hughes getting to the finals. She had a tough road to hoe. Like, it wasn't by any means her catching a good draw in the bracket. You could argue she caught the single worst draw. Like, if you go match by match, her draws are all hitters. And she knocks them all off, gets to the finals, and I mean, it is what it is at that point. It was the finals. I forget the girl she wrestled, but the girl she wrestled is a hammer.
Well, she lost to Christina Borgman from Florida.
Yeah, she lost to Borgman, who's a monster. A little shout out here, Camden Elliott. She got 7th at 100 pounds and looked good while doing it. I just kind of caught a rough draw. I think in the quarters is when she dropped. I could be wrong, but I thought that was when she dropped. And then
don't know.
But I'm not going to go George again. Can we talk about Elizabeth Rosenthal?
Oh, Alabama?
At Alabama. My man. I was watching from that quarters and on against the girl from Tennessee. She then wrestles Vogt out of Texas, who's a hammer. Beats her 9-5, kind of takes care of business. Then she wrestles Lauren Walton out of Kentucky, who I've seen firsthand.
Yeah.
Put the paws on people. And she edges her 4-3. Just a great performance from her. So,
I'm going to add
a lot of really good ones.
I'm going to add one, and that is out of North Carolina, Faith Bain, who also made the finals. She had a good run. I think she's out of West Carteret. But you know what? Overall, good performance. And one of the things I want to say before we move to the boys is Florida had 9 All-Americans. Last year, they had 6. Alabama had 4 All-Americans and a champion. Last year, they had 2. South Carolina had 4 and 3. Georgia had 3 this year, 5 last year. But for the most part, you saw a pretty good performance from the girls at NHSCA's from the Southeast.
Speaking of South Carolina, I forgot to mention Kennedy Washington up at 235. She wrestled super tough. I think she lost in the round of 16 and battled through to. She might even, she might have lost first round and battled to third. Just wrestled a really, really good tournament.
Well, and we could. Again, we can keep mentioning names, but you and I both saw Jada Lawrence last year wrestle at Roundtree against the guys, and she makes the podium at 138 for South Carolina as well.
For sure.
All right, senior boys. So obviously, Kendrick Hodge won it. Conlon Weaver wrestled outstanding. to take the title at 152, there were a lot of Florida had 11 All-Americans, pretty solid weekend for them. Alabama had 5. Georgia only had 4. Last year they had 10. North Carolina only had 3. Last year they had 10. I don't know if the numbers were less this year for Georgia and North Carolina, but it did seem as if that might be a
It
place where, you know.
it just seemed as if there were less kids in the bracket from all of the Southeast states. Like it just seemed that way. Like or actually, I'm lying. I saw a lot more Tennessee. Again, this is all my experience hit. But when I was looking at the brackets, it looked like I saw a lot more Tennessee names than last year, but a lot less Georgia, a lot less Florida, less South Carolinians. It just seemed. I don't know. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that kind of ran heads up with it. I don't think so. So a bit of an
Well,
interesting
Well, it's
trend.
seniors are always interesting because typically kids who win it as a sophomore or junior, they don't go back to NHSCA's as a junior or senior.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Drew Gorman wasn't there. I mean, he's not a senior, but he wasn't there. Luttrell wasn't there.
I know
Different
it
individuals
doesn't
weren't
sound
there.
funny, but there were a lot of proms that weekend and like homecomings. No, it's a thing that certain tournaments run into. I know there are girls and guys that I asked to be on my teams. They're like, "Oh, sorry, my prom's that weekend."
One thing I will say for anybody who wasn't watching, go watch Deshaun Poe versus Jaden Robinson
That was a hell of a match.
semifinals. It was wild until the very last second. Robinson got the win by a point. Go watch that match. Pretty interesting to watch. And a shout out to Ware County's Jabari George from Georgia, who took 4th at 285.
Yep.
So, all right, let's jump to the juniors. 26 All-Americans. And this is where Tennessee really showed out. Case and Rourke made the finals. Ethan Urchuk, Cy Fowler, Lucas Zimborski, Braden Leach, Tyson Russell all made the podium for Tennessee.
Yep. There's a great event for a great tournament for Tennessee. This is where I wish NHSCA, like the Grappler, kept some type of team score, because I'd be very fascinated to see how it would have played out for Tennessee. Because even they had some guys do some work on the backside that fell through in like the Bloods or the round before. So I'd be interested to see how that would work.
Any particular All-Americans in the juniors that stood out to you that maybe, I'm not gonna say you're surprised, but anybody that you want to like say, hey, this person had a really good run?
On the junior side, Colson Hoffman looked great, got 7th place in that bracket in a loaded bracket. Like he found his way through. And at 182, man, Connor McCloskey getting 3rd, wrestled out of his mind. Especially, he dropped early. Like I think round of 16, he lost to the eventual champion Close out of Pennsylvania, and just put his head down and started working his way through the backside. Wins over guys like Rocket at PA, that dude Caitlin out of West Virginia, who was tough. Just wins back to back to back, ends up getting 3rd. Shout out Connor McCloskey.
So one weight that I was paying attention to was 132. Max Brady from Florida lost to Aiden King from Ohio by a point, I think, in the semifinals.
Yep.
Case and Rourke then loses by a point to Aiden King in the finals at 132. A shout out to Xavier Wilson from North Carolina at 220, who made the Conci finals there. Case and Howe, Ricky Springs, George Mayholtz. I mean, if you know South Carolina wrestling, those are names that you would expect to see on the podium for South Carolina.
Yeah. And they did exactly that.
Right. All right. So let's jump down to the sophomores. Not surprising. We've already mentioned Mills and Mason Jacob, Dallas Russell. Not surprising to see JoJo Urchuk win another title as well. Anybody else, other individuals from the sophomores that you saw?
None that necessarily I want to say surprised at. But guys, I mean, Dylan Reel had a great performance.
He did.
Ryder Wilder wrestled tough. Um, I don't want to say injury's a thing, but I do know he's been coming off of a couple of different things. But he also matched up with a real tough Nevin Matchshit out of New Jersey, who in his own right ended up winning, and he's super tough. Xander Dawson as well, placing where he did. Just a lot of really solid performances from the group.
Yeah. So a couple that stood out to me were so Ryder Smith, 220 out of Tennessee, who ended up winning it, beat a PA kid for the title. Man,
And
that
beat
that
up
kid's
and beat up on Brody Reba.
yeah. Braylon Cosper wrestled exceptionally well. Samuel Combs wrestled really well. But then, I think there was a couple kids, and one was Bradley Williams out of Alabama, who lost pretty early and had to fight all the way back through to make the podium. I always look at those because, in a sophomore bracket, some of the sophomore brackets had 100 and something kids in it. So losing early and having to win like 8 matches to make the freaking podium is hard.
Yeah, it's one of those tournaments where if you do lose early, especially it's one of those things where it's weird. Typically, if one guy loses early, for some reason, other guys that are also tough also happen to lose early, and you end up catching a minefield on the backside.
I agree with you. All right, let's jump to Florida. Let's jump to the freshmen. And for me, the freshmen, man, I don't want to say it like, so there were 16 All-Americans from the Southeast states for the freshman bracket. But to give you an idea, Tennessee had none. Last year they had 4. Georgia this year had 6. Last year they had 9. Florida this year had 3. Last year they had 7. What happened with the freshmen?
It just again, it was one of those trends where it just seems as if there weren't as many guys in the brackets, and I can't answer for you why. It just seemed that way. Like when looking at everything, it was like, okay, it was almost like funny. It's like, oh look, there's a Georgia guy. I had to look through 3/4 of a bracket to find one, but here he is. I don't know. It was very odd to me.
So if I were to say, looking at the things, there were 2 names for me. Well, probably 3 names that stood out to me. One was Billy Hamilton out of Georgia. Number 2 was Jack Hardy out of North Carolina, and Houston Rudisill out of South Carolina, who I think he beat James Severs for 5th, 6th.
I do. Yeah.
So really good runs for them. Amond Williams from Florida also had a really good run at 132. He might have beat Severs earlier in the tournament as well.
Can't remember if he did or not.
Yeah.
I wanted to shout out Jonathan Moreno out of Florida. Got 4th at 152. He looked real good.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So that is our NHSCA's Virginia Beach. How hard is it for the girls to wrestle folk style season, then wrestle folk style at NHSCA's, and then the next weekend go and wrestle women's nationals and freestyle across the country?
Something's got to be fixed with the way that's scheduled. It just doesn't make sense. And I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if NHSCA has to go to folk style or folk style, freestyle, excuse me. I don't know what it's going to take, but something's got to give. Because, like, it's so tough, even as a coach, to be like, okay, I want you to come wrestle this tournament for me. Okay, is it folk style or is it free? And they're like, well, I'm training this for this event.
Right.
Well,
and look at like Mariah Mills won NHSCA's, then she went to Spokane, and I mean, she wrestled fine. She wrestled well out in Washington, but she didn't make the podium. No, the level of competition's different. It is a different style, but it's also, I mean, it's got to be difficult. Evelyn Holt Smith made the podium in the NHSCA's, didn't make the podium out at women's nationals. So I think that's hard. I think you got to pick. Maybe you have to pick one or the other, and that really that kind of sucks, honestly.
Yeah, no, it just something has got to give, and there's got to be some consensus met of, oh, and I've even said this about just as a whole, we got to as a group come together and say, okay, from this month to this month, we're gonna wrestle this style, and from this month to there has to be some
Yeah,
because
but we're not going to do that because like AAU Disney Duels happens in the middle of summer and it's folk style.
well, again, what should and will are two very different things. I understand that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Something's got to give, and because I feel like it's hurting everyone in the long run.
All right, so let's jump to women's nationals. We had 4 champs from the Southeast out at women's nationals. Caitlin Davis up at U23s for South Carolina. You had your defending world champion from the state of Tennessee, Piper Fowler, won once again in what U17s? Was it U17s?
I
Yeah,
believe.
U17s. And then you had 2 champs from the state of Georgia. Congratulations to Amani Jones for taking a U23 title and a very young 14U 115-pound champion, Carolyn Dover. That's pretty cool.
It is really cool, especially knowing Dover and seeing her progression. That was super cool to see. Shout out to her; she deserves it. Man, they all looked really good, and
Did you see that headlock by Amani? Did you see that her headlock?
Come on now, that's not fair. Like you can't defend that. Like that's one of those where you're in the air and you're like, well, this is where I'm going. This is my life now. There ain't much I can do about it.
I want to say there might have been an 18U out there or a 10U or a 12U that won as well. But we really focus in on 14U and older. We don't really get into much younger groups.
I'm trying to think if there was. I can't remember any off the top of my head. That doesn't mean much though. But I can't remember any off the top of my head.
I just wanted to clear it up for everybody because I don't even look at the results of little kids. I mean,
I don't either.
I'm a big believer that you go out and you wrestle and you can, have a good time and have fun at a younger age. And then we start focusing on where you finish on the podium as you get older. So that said, we had quite a few girls at 14U who made the podium, and that included Mia Pardo from North Carolina, Natalie Lippenstrew, is that how I say it?
I do not know.
Who made the finals at 14U at 87 pounds. Zoe Delgado joined the podium with Dover at 14U, 115 pounds. She took 4th. Zoe Delgado, I believe, is the younger sister of Sophia Delgado. So
I believe that as well. That would make sense at least.
Lillian Malloy from Georgia took 4th at 121. Michaela Hinchy from South Carolina took 5th at 143. Easton Datamoff, I'm not sure how you say that, from Tennessee.
Sure.
That's a U15 girl. So 14U's had quite a few. You had Easton who took 5th or 6th at 15U. Abigail Gonzalez took 3rd. Caroline Hilton from Tennessee was in the finals at 58. She was also joined by Janiyah Johnson in the finals at 66 for 15Us. 14 and 15Us, the girls from the Southeast wrestled pretty darn well.
Yeah, had a real good performance as a whole of the age group for the Southeast.
Yeah. Now, U17, that's a whole other story, and that makes me wonder, Piper Fowler won it, and Grace Leota finished on the podium at 73 pounds or 73 kilos, excuse me. But I don't know that any other Southeast girls at U17s made the podium.
I can't think of any that did. I know a couple of, like obviously the girls I know, Artemis Eaton and Greta Garbazovas wrestled tough.
They did?
I think they both won one on the front side and then won three on the back side, and both went out in the round before placement. So I mean, it's one of those things where I just think the brackets, the way that they fell for all. I mean, there were a couple girls from like Florida and Tennessee that I saw the U17 draws, and I was like, ugh, like just caught a rough draw. Like, and it is what it is. I mean, Mariah Mills, super tough, draws Ellison out of California, draws Ellison out of California round 2. She rattled a couple off on the backside, but that's one of those events where if you lose in the first round, you got to rattle off 4 against hammers in a row.
Yeah. And did Ellison end up winning it, or was in the
Yes,
finals?
Ellison won it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ellison ended up winning the thing.
Yeah. So
there was someone else in that bracket. Oh yeah, Alvarado. Alvarado gets a few off and then loses in the bloods to Cooper, who you could argue she got 7. You could argue Cooper should have been in the top 4 as well. Like, I think it's just to an extent the Southeast kind of got the short end of the stick this weekend. Not like it was planned, but just happens.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, U17, that's a great age group, right? The difference between 14Us and 15Us and 17U is a world of difference.
Yeah.
And the level of competition at 17Us is no joke. So, and the other thing and you're right, Artemis and Garbazovas and Alvarado, and there are several individuals who at Mariah Mills who had good runs, didn't quite make the podium. You also saw some of the U20s or the former 17Us now moved to U20s, right? So May Prado, who took 8th at U20, she's now a U20. Zeo Estrada, now a U20, who took 2nd at there. Claire Bowie, who's still in high school for Florida, took 2nd at U20s. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. We have had girls kind of age out and gone to a different age group. All right. And then we had some U23s. Always good to see, like a Diana Holmes make the podium, or former Georgia wrestler. Amani Jones, obviously still doing wonderful work for, was it North Central? She wrestles for North Central, right?
Illinois.
Yeah. So overall, women's nationals, what do you think?
Feel like it was good performances as a whole from the Southeast. Obviously, we want to see more on the podium. It is what it is. A couple got, whether it was a rough draw or just, maybe didn't have their best weekend. But I like what I see for the girls. I feel like Southeast continues to grow, not only in numbers, but in skill level. So it's obviously exciting to see.
Yeah, well, and honestly, Spokane, that's a long way to go. And I get it for California girls coming all the way over to Virginia Beach for NHSCAs, but for the Southeast to head all the way to Washington State, especially after maybe just going to Virginia Beach, that's tough.
Yeah,
that's tough.
So
that's 2 weekends in a row.
That's the other thing, is I feel like there were a lot of girls that could have maybe done something, maybe have a good performance, get to the podium, but that trek out to Washington just isn't happening.
I agree. All right. So we have covered, not very much, not in depth, Olympic trials, but women's nationals and NHSCA. So we are wrapping this episode up. But before we do so, because Scrappy has entered the weird and wonderful world of professional wrestling. And you know what? You got something cool sitting with you, and I do want you to share that.
So I've been teasing this for about a few weeks, a month now. Shout out Squared Circle Action in Royston. They are going to allow me to use their building to fulfill a lifelong dream of mine. to own my own wrestling promotion, and in sitting in my lap is the Scrappy. Oh, the belt. Balls. It's already gone to a calamity. Sorry. The belt of the pins popped. Excuse me. The Scrappy champ. Oh, I gotta turn the blur off. Oh, bollocks! I forgot I have the background blur on. Give me a moment. Oh, this is already a thing, isn't it? There we go. The Scrappy Championship Wrestling Championship belt. Now, this is where we're going to be different at Scrappy Championship Wrestling. First off, I think it's beautiful. The white strap.
It is sharp. I will say,
and it's got some weight to it.
I'm not a professional wrestling fan, but I will say that is a cool belt. Man, if you handed out that kind of belt at the state tournament, that would be pretty cool. The high school state tournament. You know what I'm saying?
Now, that was $450. I don't think we'll be doing that for every state bracket. At any rate, what I am going to do at Scrappy Championship Wrestling, what is going to make us different? Because some of y'all that are watching these videos have either watched professional wrestling. I know a couple have been to the shows in Royston that I wrestle at. How are we going to be different, especially with the Royston Dome having such a lineage of professional wrestling? We are going to have weight classes. We will have 3 world championships. The other 2 of these are coming in the mail as we speak. We will have an SCW World's Heavyweight Championship, a World's Middleweight Championship, and a World's Lightweight Championship.
Hey, will the lightweights have a smaller belt?
See, you're funny. See, you think you're funny. But speaking of the lightweights, I am very happy to announce the 4-man bracket that will be competing for this beauty at SCW Shot Heard Around the World, May 19th at the Royston Dome, 305 Cherry Street. It is, in my opinion, my favorite bracket and will be main eventing the card in its finals for the championship. Bout number 1 of the night, you have a Royston guy, one half of the SCA Tag Team Champions, TJ Trigger, and he will go up against one of South Carolina's budding superstars in Dre the Goat. I think that match in of itself could be worth the price of admission. In bout number 6 in the other semifinal, a guy who lives in the city of Royston, Chop Top, SCA guy. He's been there for years. He goes up against a Platinum Championship Wrestling product from Atlanta, Georgia, DJ Smoke. The 2 winners of those semifinals will meet in the finals for the lightweight championship. I am ecstatic for that whole 4-man bracket. I don't know who's going to win. It's 4 really, really tough guys. I'm excited for it. If you want to see that, please. And if you have any interest in professional wrestling and you're within the Northeast Georgia area, I recommend coming out on May 19th and seeing what Scrappy has to offer.
All right. So I got to ask you a question because, I mean, this is not my world. This is not my world. But you said you don't know who's going to win. But it's an entertainment. So you guys, is it not determined ahead of time? How's that happen?
Well, so the salesman in me wants to say, come find out on the 19th. But so if we're gonna be honest, have this discussion for a moment. Yes, the way it will typically work is you get to the show, and if you're in a storyline, you'll probably know what's going on. But if you're just coming there to work the show, you get there that late afternoon. I get there typically around 5:30, get my warm up and all that jazz, and you get given your marching orders for the night. Okay. And if you are interested in this, or even if you're listening and you're skeptical, I will tell you the same thing I told my mother. If you come to this show, don't look at it like you're coming to watch a wrestling tournament. Think of it as you're watching a play, as you're watching a TV show live. That's the way you need to look at it. It will be the most entertaining 2 hours of your life if you do when you go to these shows. May 19th, doors open at 2 p.m., first bell at 3. will be out of there by like 5 on a Sunday, which means you could go to dinner after watching a wrestling show, which is one thing I hate about pro wrestling is most shows as a worker, you're getting out of there at about 10:30, 11. It
All
would
right.
be so much better to do matinees. So there you go. That is my spiel. I highly recommend coming out. I'll send Jason the bracket. Hopefully it'll be shown right about here. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that bracket is super exciting to me. There's more to come. I will be announcing the middleweight and heavyweight brackets in the weeks to come. And one final thing, I guess parting shot, the Don Father Memorial Duels in less than 2 weeks. Sunday, April 28th, Lumpkin County High School. Shout out to Lumpkin County on short notice, allowing me to host the event. Super exciting weekend. 16 teams, 5 girls teams in that. Cleveland, Riot, Swamp Monsters, myself, or Fierce and Scrappy for that matter, Raw, Ground Zero, Next Level. I'm missing teams. Assassins at Alabama. It is going to be an incredible event. If you're in the Lumpkin area, I highly recommend coming down, watching some awesome wrestling with some of the Southeast best at the high school level.
All right. So, yeah, as you can tell, Lucas has got quite a few things going on. I will say, man, the belt is pretty cool. I'm loving the belt. I am loving the belt.
I hope whoever's in my bracket knows that I don't want to lose this. I'd prefer to have it in my house.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's nice. It's nice. All right. So I love the Don Father Memorial Duels as well. That's a good marketing thing as well. I love that. And you know what, guys? We will be back once a week for the next, I don't know, couple months or so. I don't know exactly how long we'll go for a while, but it will be we're going to touch base on tons of things. And don't be surprised if Scrappy breaks out his pro wrestling a little bit and lets us know what's going on in that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Does that work?
I will continue to say this, amateur wrestling people. I know the opinions of pro wrestling in certain situations. If you are willing to give it a chance and look at it as entertainment, I think you will find it very entertaining, and I think you'll be able to appreciate it for what it is. Well, I say this as an amateur guy, right? I understand that it's not, it's like you said, it is predetermined. There is that to it. But if you accept it for what it is and just allow yourself to, for 2 hours, get into it, you'll appreciate it heavily.
Well, and I do appreciate the fact that, number one, there is a storyline that goes with it, right? And it might be a little over the top and all these sorts of things and all that jazz, but there is a level of athleticism. Look at a lot of former professional wrestlers or current professional wrestlers. I mean, Cody Rhodes. I mean, they're former wrestlers. I mean, Peyton Prussian is a NAIA national champion who's now competing at NXT, right? You've got Jacob Casper, who was an NCAA All-American or NCAA.
Chad Gable.
Right. So many of them. So I can appreciate the athleticism and all those sorts of things. I think it's really important that you actually say it the way you said it. And that is put it on the shelf as far as thinking of it as your kind of wrestling and think of it as a show.
Yeah. That's how you have to think about it. I made my mother do the same thing. And when I did it with her and I told her, look at it as a level of entertainment, it became a lot more entertaining for her because you have to understand what you're walking into. You're going to see some things that are funny, but if you look at it in a realistic sense, you'd be like, yeah, not in a million years. Just like 95% of television shows we all watch any given day. For example, I'm a Game of Thrones nut. I know dragons don't currently roam around the city of Hartwell. It's just the truth, but it's entertaining.
And on that note, we are done this week. Tune back in next week. You know what? I gotta get Scrappy to get me a belt. I want a belt that sits like right here above my head.
Tough.
All right.
That'd be cool.
All right, cool. Lucas, I will see you, man. Take care.
Much love. Peace.
All right.